Kum learning a block Gemara. Today is the Gemara for the Shchedish and the Daf is Daf Samach Dalad. We're up to the Mishnah Daf Samach Gimel Amud Beis on the bottom of the page. Yeah. Okay. The Mishnah says, Isha Sha'amra, if a woman says to a person, he's Kabbaligiki, I want you to receive the get on my behalf, which means the moment you receive the get in your hand, I am a free woman. She needs two groups of two edim. First of all, we need two edim that she actually appointed someone to be her shliach, and two that we need that say b'fanenu kibul. And we need two people to say that they saw the witnesses they saw this shliach receive the get, the kara, and then he tore it apart. Why he tore it apart, we'll soon see. So we just started the Mishnah of Sam Gimel and Beis. So a woman appointed a shliach to an agent to act on her behalf. She needs witnesses that she actually appointed this person. And the person agrees that he was appointed, but we still need witnesses, and we need witnesses that he received it on his end. Remember, we learned that Eidim Masir Kas Kuntra Belazar, that the Eidim that actually see the transfer of the get are the ones that count, and therefore we need witnesses that happened. Even though they're the same witnesses, they're also good. All the Shem asked, what do you mean even if they're the same witnesses? It's better than the same witnesses, because in fact we have a rule that Pishnayim Eidim Yukun Davar, that two witnesses establish something, V'loi Chatzi Davar. If two witnesses saw that she appointed an aid, and another two witnesses saw that this shliach received the get, isn't each one seeing only half of an event? So in fact, that's problematic. What do you mean, even if one's better than one? So some of the Shem answer that the rule of Chatzi Davar is if you could have seen more. For example, two signs of maturity, puberty. Two Adim say they saw one here, and the other two Adim they saw another here, powerful. And that's the problem, because that's davar v'lo chatzi davar. Because each one could have seen both, and they only saw one. Here, at that juncture, when they appointed the shliach, there's nothing else to see. They saw the entire thing of that particular moment, and therefore that's not called chatzi davar at all. And the valid Adim. And so you can have one for the first group, one for the second group, and a third party join them together. Same person from both groups and the second person joining them. Sorry?
Sending someone to receive a get because of distance, she has to send three people essentially.
No, because she tells the shliach when you go to receive the get husband, make sure that two Eidim who are watching you. She doesn't have to send Eidim.
They just have to exist somewhere.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we have an interesting discussion. What happens if a Baal, there's a dispute? In our mission, there's no dispute. The husband says, I did give this person a get, but I only gave them to hold it for me, not to give it to this woman. But the Shlisham, this particular person who's objective, says the Gedishin. You gave it to me to divorce her. Minema. So who is believed in this case? The woman obviously has no say, she doesn't know. So who is believed in this case? And they're talking about a case where the man and the woman, they both live in the same city. Says only because they live in the same city as Osusi. Ravuna says, Balnam, you believe the husband. There's only Pekadon. Now, Chizah says, Shalishlam, you believe this person. Ravuna, Balnam, the husband, believe the Misa, because if it's true, here we have a compelling logic. That'd be true. If the husband trusted this person to give a get, if he trusted whatever the person says, that's the truth. But here you have a compelling logic that says that no, that overrides the logic. And that is, if the husband really wanted to give her a get, why have a shliach? You both live in the same town. Just walk over and give her the get. So therefore, it must be that he only gave it to him as a pekat until he's ready. Wanted him to mind it. That's Ravuna. Baal Nemedi Misa, if it's true, the legation you have an Nelly gave it to the divorce, so they have you have a Nelly. You don't have you have a Nelly. Should have given it directly to her. They both live in the same town. So L'chayda Face already asked. So what was the whole exercise in the beginning of this Masechta? We say before nechtem to ensure that the husband does not come tomorrow and make all kinds of allegations again. He can still come tomorrow and make all kinds of allegations about again. He can say that I only gave the begotten. So there's an answer. That's why this is talking about a very narrow case where the husband and wife live in the same town. But if she lives in a different city, he can't say, "Oh, I could have given directly." But you couldn't. We couldn't travel there. That's not taina. But we did learn that even in the same city, ma'ar salaz from one street to the other street, and from one neighborhood to the other neighborhood, you still say for next. Over there, the husband has a very strong taina. He can always say, "I could have walked right over. It's across the street." So the l'chayda, the get is not a valid get. So either the Gemara before does not agree with Rav Huna's at all, and that you don't believe the husband versus the shliach, or talking about the case is where the husband had to leave town straight away, and that's why he gave the shliach. They can no longer say, "Oh, I could have done myself." You couldn't. You weren't around. So what's his Avchizah? And Avchizah says, "No." Why you trusted him with the get to mind it. So obviously you trusted him. If you trust him, then you trust him. Whatever he says, it must be the truth. Otherwise, why would you have given him in the first place to watch your get? So we believe the shlish. So most of Rabbi has a question. But anyway, don't we ever rule that generally for a person's moida, it's equal to 100 witnesses, just to emphasize the point, because in halacha today, 2 and 100 witnesses make absolutely no difference. But just to emphasize the point, how if you admit you owe the money, that's it. I don't care how many witnesses the guy brings. You don't know the money, you still pay the shlish nemesh. But nevertheless, a third party is objective. Believe more than them. Okay, so what do you mean? There's an argument between the two about the money that he gave to the shlish. What was the purpose of that money? And shlish nemesh, the shlish is believed. Or how much money they gave. The shlish, one guy gave 100, we gave 200. The shlish is always believed. So if he clears him, so if halacha, you believe the shlish. As the Gemara, shiny money is different. This yagla mechila. If he gave it to shlish to wash the money, that means he trusts him implicitly. And not only that, you have the right to say, even though the money is mine, I'm the money. So therefore, whatever the shlish says goes. When it comes to a get, you can't just say whatever he says goes. Because if the husband taka did not make him a shliach, he can't be mechila. You know what? You can become the shliach. Too late already. When you gave it to him, you gave it to him as a pekudin. It's a question of the truth. It's not a question of okay, whatever it is, it is. There's no whatever it is, because you have to appoint a shliach for a get. So the Gittin included says the same that didn't applies to Gittin Yibuli Shlish Gittin Mama. Remember, we learned before in the beginning that get can also mean a contract, any contract. I by time the status. So the same thing it says in one price, Gittin, one place status. Obviously, we're not talking about the same thing. Gittin is women's divorce and status are status. So you really got to be a Dodi Tanya. It's the same Bryce. It's two different Bryces. Each Tanya has his own way of expressing himself. Well, tonight we listen to Mishnah. The woman says, the wife says to a person, "I want you to be my agent, receive my get." We heard us appoint this person. Then two people say, "We saw the shliach receive the get, and he ripped it up." Why did you do this for? If you tell me you always believe a shliach, like Rav Chizah says, let this agent say that the husband gave me the get, or let us say that the husband that she appointed me. What do you need agent for? Says the Gemara. When do we believe a shlish? If the shlish is still holding on to the get, and then we say, that because as Rashi explains, Miga, if he wants, he can give it to her right now, or could have, or Rashi says more, he could have given it to her whenever he wanted. Why are you still holding on to it? So therefore, the question is, why don't we believe shlish? Says the Gemara, he ripped it up. Doesn't have the get in his hand anymore. The lehem to believe him. So therefore, and the fact that he has the pieces, he no longer miga. He could give it to her right now. Couldn't. It's all ripped up. Why ripped it up? We'll soon see. The Gemara,
I think the mission just said it. So
in other words, if it wouldn't have been, sorry?
Mission should just say he has to keep it. Why does he have to find another two people?
It has to keep it. It's the point that he has to give it to the woman. She should be divorced.
Yeah, I'm saying, but he has to hold on to it.
Yeah, well, because he tore it up, therefore we need two sets of ways. Had he not torn it up, according to
have the document.
If he wouldn't have torn it up, he would have given it to her. Then you would believe the shlish. Oh, it's true matter. You only believe shlish while Kozman's in his hand. Once he gave it to her, maybe he gave it to him as a pekudin, and he decided to give it to her. So he has a migad if he wants, he could have given it to her. Yeah, while he has it in his hand. But the Gemara. Teinach Amra Kibul Amli. Okay, Teinach, the part that she said, but the part that he received, why did he say, why did he call it Adim that he received to get as a get? It's the most important part of the get, is not the Adim signature, but rather the Adim who actually saw the transfer of the get. Says the Gemara, Karalamali, why have to rip it up? I'm gonna be at a certain time in history when they were not allowed to do anything Jewish, and the get was considered a religious contract, and therefore they had to rip it up. In other words, if it wouldn't have been for the case of the Mishnah, wouldn't have ripped it up, it'd be a different story. Amar Abba said, Abba Moide, the same Rabhuna is actually Moide, the one that said that you don't believe the Shalish. The Amar, if she says, if she says that this very shliach told me, this shliach told me, the legation you have that he was received it as not as a pekoton, but to give it as a law, I have to believe. The shalish says, I received the divorce, nobody two witnesses. But if the wife says the shalish told me, then she didn't believe. What's the logic in that? We hear from the shalish directly, we don't believe him. He could meet you, the shalish Google Muhammad. We don't believe the shalish, but he Muhammad believe her. Ella, she says, Kamoy the D. Before I stood there and I watched the Gadishin. You have an element. If she says I was there, not that the shalish told me, but I saw it in my own eyes, she believed. Why she believed? Because she has a migri. She could have said the husband gave it to me. Directly. She could have gave it to me directly, and she would believe, a woman would believe in that case. So therefore, like the woman would have the chutzpah to say to her husband, you gave me a get. So therefore she's believed. That's what he meant to say. And says the Gemara, what happened? The husband said, I gave it to the shlish to give it a divorce. The shlish now in this case, everybody agrees. They're all on the same page. The husband says, I gave it as a divorce. The shlish said he gave me as a divorce. The he and the she says, I received the get, but I lost it. The fact that nobody has the get anymore, it disappeared. Well, what do we have now? It's a situation we're talking about error, a matter of she's still a married woman or not. You only need two people. So you might understand. First of all, we said before that you believe a shlish. We already answered. When do we believe a shlish? You only believe it because he has a get in his hand because he has a migi, could give it to right now. But since the get to disappeared, I'm talking about. I believe the husband. The man says, I divorced my wife, even though we don't see any bill of divorce. Neman believed. Says Gemara very simply, and you're right. If the husband would have said, I divorced my wife, she'd be free. But he doesn't say that. He just said, I gave it to the agent. Does the husband know that the agent gave it to her? Absolutely not. So how can he get up there and say with a veracity that my wife's divorced? Mikama Gerashti, did he say here that I divorced my wife? Says the Gemara, but why don't we use the rule? Isn't there a rule that a shliach normally carries out the shlichus? And how do we know that? If a person says to his shliach, say, go out, go out and be mekadesh a woman for me, without spelling out which town, without spelling out a name, just say, no, find me any girl. The mace, and then the shliach died. Is also every woman in the world, because maybe that's a sister, the mother, or whatever. Face already asked. How can anybody marry a woman? Maybe that woman is already married to this guy. The Torah says, no, the woman who is on the receiving end of the shliach knows whether she received kedusha or not. It's the sister, the mother, the daughter. You know that every one of your relatives. So therefore, Tracy Shana says, if every one of this person's relatives are all married already, then there's no problem. You can, and she's the only single girl in the family, then you can marry her. Then you can marry her. What are you worried about? The others is they're already married women. And her is that shliach got no better. That's your wife. That's your betrothal. Your betrothed. And therefore there's no issue whatsoever. Taisa says here that this is merely a knas. Because you can you have to go after the majority and all that kind of stuff. Taisa, this is a knas for being so let's say not careful. We just say stam. They're so reckless. Go marry a woman. That's why what everybody answers about Eliezer, why we did see that Laban tried to kill we see Laban tried to kill Yaakov because he tried to kill Eliezer the shliach, and then Yaakov never able to marry anybody, and because the shliach would have carried out the shlichus, and every person, maybe the sister, is obviously a very difficult answer. Especially you can marry Eliezer if he has no sisters. Anyway, as the Gemara. That's not a question. Hani mila chumra. When do we rely on this chazaka? When it's a chumra, like over there, you can never marry anybody. Abulakula, here you want to make a kula that she should be a free woman. But we don't know. We don't have a get or anything else. We don't believe the husband because he doesn't know if she's divorced. We don't believe the shliach. We don't know. because he doesn't have to get in his hand anymore. What do I believe her? Don't we have a roof? Rabbanun tell us that if a woman says to her husband, you divorce me, and then men should believe. A woman doesn't have the chutzpah from her husband. She has nothing to prove her point. So she wouldn't have the chutzpah to come up with such a story unless it's true. The Messiah here, the husband is agreeing with her, the shliach is agreeing with her, so it's no chutzpah. Meeither. So even if she's not telling the truth, she's so happy to say that she's a free woman, and the chazakah falls away. Says the Gemara, Mishnah, Naida Hamayros, a girl that is 12 years old, we know a girl between 12 and 12 and a half, she can accept her own kedushin, and her father can accept her kedushin. Now we're talking about focus on Gittin. The Avia Mekablin is Gittin. She and her father can accept the get on her behalf. That's the opinion of the Tanakama. Two people receive the get on behalf of one person. The husband, the father takes over, and he's the only one who's able to receive the get. And rule number 2, if she's not mature enough that she can actually mind her own get, she cannot be divorced. There's a big argument in halacha, whether in the shayna here, what happens that she herself cannot accept her divorce because she's a shayta. We learn it has to be sent away from home. Now she comes right back. What about the father? Can the father accept for his daughter if she is in such a situation that she's not? No, is the father sort of the koyach of the father remains with the father, and therefore it doesn't matter what the status of the daughter is, or the father is just merely representing the daughter, but the daughter herself is not in a position to receive the get because she is, let's say, a shaita, then the father cannot accept the get on her behalf either.
Can he be Makadisha if she's a shaita?
Yeah, father can. There's no rules. Only by get it says you send her away, but shilcham bebesa. So we learn you send her away and she doesn't come right back. So think about it. The Micah Mifli, what's the argument on the Kama whether the father and the daughter both can accept her get? Rabban hold Yoda Yiser to Zochel Rachmana. Rabban hold that not only there's an extra hand over here, and the extra hand is that the daughter also can receive her own get. And Rabbi Yudus of it, the Mokam of the Yad Lila Lav Klumi, that in the hand of her father. When the father is the one who's able to receive the get, her hand doesn't exist. Now, there's a big machlekes also between the Rishonim. Rashi says another Rishonim. What about a ketana? When we say that the Tanakama holds side the daughter and side the father can receive the get, is it limited only to an ida, but a ketana only the father, and only the father, and not the daughter, or a ketana also? If you learn that a ketana also can receive her get, she cannot get herself married, but she can receive her get if she's mature enough. Then, when it says an extra hand, the extra hand is not her. She had a hand always. It's the extra hand is her father's hand. That we also added another layer in the father's hand. If you hold it's only Naima Rasa, ketana she had no hand. Then when we say an extra hand, we mean her hand. That the father for sure. Till she's 12, who were able to see only the father, and now we added also her hand. Okay, letting on further, she cannot mind her get. She's old enough that she's mature enough, she can mind her get. She's divorced. But she's not mature enough to mind her get. She cannot be divorced. Because she's sent away and she understands that she's divorced, she won't come back. But if she's not mature enough to understand that this, that's it, our relationship is over, then there's no get. Says the Gemara, what means she can mind to get? What's the definition of a ketana is mature enough to mind her own get? So we answered, kosher mishameres gita v'davar achad. She minds her own get and something else. What does that mean? My comment, what does that mean? Becha first said, kosher mishameres davar achad gita. She had a get, and then if she loses it, she just picks up a cup. She says, oh, here's my divorce. I mean, she has no understanding at all what this bill of divorce was. Says the Gemara, that's a ketana. That's not a ketana. If she has a cup and thinks that's a get, we're not talking about a ketana. It's what's worse than that. And therefore, for sure, if you send it away, she'll come right back. She doesn't understand what's going on here. Says the Gemara, she understands the difference between, let's say, a get and another contract. It looks the same. It looks very, very similar. But she understands this is unique. This is a get. I mean, she has some understanding that a get is not just a long contract. A get means our relationship is over. We're talking now about ages of children that when there's tzroy. if you give a child a pebble, we learned before that we made that for children that mekha, whatever they buy the mekha, whatever they sell the metalton by metalton. So now we say, if this child is mature enough, that's right. You give him a pebble, zerka, he knows it's toss it away. But egg, give him a nut, the night like takes it because he knows there's a food. Then zeichel atzmai is mature enough that he can be zeichel for himself, but the ain't zeichel achel cannot be zeichel on behalf of others. No, sorry, because I want you to pick this up and have in mind somebody else. He doesn't have that koyach to be to behalf for others, and therefore the person who gave it to him can always change his mind. What happens? You give an object, and then you ask him now later, can I have it back? And you don't have a situation. Oh, it's mine. I'm going to give it back to you. That means it's a bit more mature than zeichel ben latze ben lachedi. So according to Ravasi, you can be mature enough to be zeichel and have others as well. Key Amrit Faces asked a very important question. He asked, remember we had a long discussion whether Schia Matam Shlichus or not. If Schia, what's the logic? I can be Zeicha for, let's say, somebody else. Am I like that person? I can be Zeicha on behalf of you. I pick up $100 and say, oh, I'll give it to Shmerel. And as soon as I said that, Shmerel is kindness. Why? Is Schia a separate issue altogether? Like Rashi wants to say, Rashi, or is it Schia Matam Shlichus? And now in Sadi, we are witnesses that you would have known that this was there. Of course, you'd be happy to have it.
So we say the zachal enough,
that's the question.
You have the right to
yeah, but that's the question.
Something.
So the question, so the question. So how can a cotton be for somebody else? Since the cotton has no shlichus, how could it be cutting for anybody else? What are we even talking about over here? We're saying if a child is mature enough to give him a chayfetz and he holds on to it, and then he gives it back to you whenever you want. If you're sure, he can be zeich and have others. How? He's not a shliach. Not trying to hold those shlichus. The Tosfos lays down a very interesting rule, and the Tosfos talks about it, and that is that when do we say that a cotton has no shlichus? Only things which are not shaykh to a cotton, like truma. He has no mitzvah of truma, so he can't be a shliach by truma. Atem gamatem. But things which a cotton is shaykh to, 100% he can be a shliach, therefore he can be zeicha. Since he could be zeicha for himself, so he's shaykh to the idea of acquiring something, therefore he can be zeicha on behalf of somebody else. Unbelievable chiddush and taisa that a child can be a shliach in those things which relate to a child. Anyway, further. That's Ravasi's opinion. Kamrita Kamed Shmuel says, when I repeated this before Shmuel, Amal, he said, they both have the same thing. I don't care, but or to give him a chayfetz to Marzil Rasha, the didn't matter say. In what? That you could be zeich for others, that you can't. So the Gemara, what are you saying? This case and this case, they can only be zeicha for themselves, but not zeicha on behalf of others. Rashi says over here, zeicha on behalf of others is midrabanan. The opinion of us is others. Rashi doesn't say that when he says zeicha to himself. So it seems from Rashi that Rashi holds that zeicha for himself is mahatayda. A child can be zeicha for himself mahatayda, even though Rashi in Sukkah says by lulav there when we say you give it to the child, he's only kainim midrabanan. So we've first talk about that. But what do you mean a child's zeichem atayda? So the Tosfos says when das acheres matna, if somebody else is if the child picks up a mitzvah we're looking for darkish sholem, gezel gomer, the rabbanim. But if somebody gives it to you, then you can't atayda. Why? So Tosfos understands the pshat is because when somebody gives it to you, who's making the kinyan? No. Who's making the kinyan? The adult is giving it. There's a famous question. Who, when you make a kinyan, who's the main person? The main person makes the kinyan, the makina or the kaina? And a lot of differences in halacha. So it does say that it's the makina who makes the kinyan. So that it doesn't matter regardless of the recipient here as a child. The das acheres makna is making the kinyan. The problem is by a mitzvah, when you find an object, there's nobody to give it to him. The child is shaykh. And that's the havana in Tosfos. Telling about further, Moshe Rabchinin Bardon. So Rabchinin Bardon asked a question of Chizda. It says, "Kate Mishtatvin, we had this in Elvin. How do you make a mobile? If you want to make a mobile, you take a barrel of wine and you have in mind everybody in the neighborhood." You put down the barrel of wine. But you said, I want this barrel to be on behalf of the whole mob, so everybody can carry, because we all join together in one rishus. And how is he zoich on behalf of everybody? Through your adult children. Adult children does not mean we paskin go to the most, does not mean over bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah. It means that they don't depend on you. They're independent. Through Jewish Eved, through Jewish Shivcha. Now, a girl, once she's 12 years old, she's free. So it must be under Bas Mitzvah. No, hi Shivcha, my burger baby, why she's still a Shivcha? She's not an adult yet. It says clearly here that she can zoiche the barrel of wine on behalf of other people. Kasher Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda said that you can never be zoiche, a child can never be zoiche on behalf of other people. Clearly here by Eidevin, by Shtufim Mavayis, a child can be zoiche on behalf of everyone else. Says the Gemara shiny Shtufim Mavayis the Rabbanon. The Gemara answers that no, Shtufim Mavayis is the Rabbanon. And those because Mahataydi a lot of carry. Shlomo Melech, when Shlomo Melech was Masak and Erevin, he did two things. First of all, he created the Isa, and then he created the Heter. First, he made the Isa. You cannot carry from one property to another property because the next one you might carry into Shusarab. So Shlomo Melech first came with an Isa, and then he gave him remedy. You want to carry? Let's make an Eder between the two. As the Yerushalmi says, the idea is that people should eat Shabbos lunch together because since we're like one big house now, one big family, he brings people together. So it's all part of the plan. It wasn't just stamp asa. It was asa with an incentive to you should go ahead and use the remedy so it brings people together. So anyway, the answer is that inyanim, which is only the Rabbanon, were lenient that a child to be zoich behalf of others. We're talking about inyanim of the Torah, things which we might Torah. A child does not have the ability to be zoich behalf of others, like even the child mature, not like Ravasi. Rav Chizda said, "Ishtik v'doin accepted that answer." Amazing. Rav Chizda is saying, "You asked me a question, we gave a good answer," and he's saying, "You're happy the answer they gave to defend me." Interesting, because you could have asked a question. What could have asked? Says the Gemara, you could have said, "Cold and tikkun get the tikkun," even though it's only with Rabban and Shtuvay. But once they have a rule, once Rabban make a takana, it's similar to the Torah. And if Mahat Torah, a child cannot be zeich and have others, neither could be Rabbanon. So you could have continued with your rage and refuse and reject what I said. And Gemara says, no. Why didn't he ask the question? Because why didn't he bother him? Either key. I mean, when do we say call the ticket about again? That I think in the Muslims about Torah. It has some basis in the Torah. And the Muslims about Torah. The whole idea of Shema is no basis in the Torah. I tell you a lot of carry from one shuyach to another shuyach. There's no basis whatsoever. Then Lloyd did not have to. So
He's arguing against himself.
Yeah, this is amazing. We pointed out yesterday as well how Shmuel answered on behalf of Rav. This or Abai answered on behalf of Rav. This brings out the emeskite of the Torah here. They're not out to win an argument, they're out to find the truth. So Chiz himself was not happy with the answer.
It's not about, it's about what's right, not about being right.
Very good. Well, you don't always have to be right. Yeah. Master Babi, a similar question. If you want to get Maisa Sheni to take it to Shleim, it's a big load, right? So you can redeem it and convert it into money. But if you're the owner, the one who redeems it, you have to always add a fifth, which is really a core. You have to add money. But if anybody else redeems it, they just pay the full value. You don't want to pay the extra fifth. Let's say it's quite a lot. It's a very simple thing. You give money as a gift to your son or daughter who's no longer, who are independent, and they tell you, what? I'm lending you the money. Why don't you redeem it? And one day you'll pay me back. This way they don't have to pay the full value. They don't have to pay the extra fifth. And again, I'm lending you this money. This is your money now. And I want you to do the Maisa Shein this way. I don't have to worry about the extra chaimish. Now, again, same question. How do you have a Jewish shivcha in your house? Generally, we don't call a Yiddish girl like a shivcha, called an amma. Anyway, Idasya, base-sided, they brought two-sided, my boy Gabe, how can she still be a shivcha? She's underage. No, how can she go ahead and redeem the Maisa Sheini? So the Gemara, again, we're saying the same thing. We're talking Maisa today. It's only the Rabban. Says the Gemara. If it's talking about today, but today we have a concept of Amma. We really learned Tanya, didn't we learn? And there's a whole in the Ain Eved Ivri Noeg Elbas Mancha Yevel Noeg. The laws of Eved Ivri only apply while there was Yevel, which is the first base of Mikdash. So if it's Malazed, how do you have an Eved or an Amma video? Ella, we're talking about here an otzit she'enu nakum. We're talking about a potted plant that has no puncture, that is only midrabanan that dechayi ma'aser sheni, and that's why they can be. The Rabbi says, Gimel midas bekat. Rabbi says there are three rules by cotton. these stages. You give him a pebble, throws it away. Ego is and a nut. And they keep it for himself, not for others. Corresponding a ktana. If a girl is that mature that she can distinguish in two, miskadeshes. If let's say the father died, she's an orphan and she doesn't have a mother, so she can even makadesh herself. But lemian, and now she just can't walk out of the marriage. She now needs she needs a divorce. And at the age of 12, she has to say, I don't want to live with the guy anymore. Otherwise, she'll be married. In other words, she has some sense of what's going on. Again, by Kedushin as well. If we say that she's not smart enough to understand what Kedushin is, that she's married, then you don't need anything. But the moment she's mature enough to know that she's married, then you need me at the age of 12. Okay, hapuutis, putis. Sometimes we translate putis means tiny tots, but here putis is older. It's already the next stage. Hapuutis, and we learned before the mekha by metalkin. So mekha betalkin, which is what we learned before in the Mishnah. Ukenegdon. And corresponding to that, Biktana, by a girl, Mizgareshes Bikadusha of her. She was divorced by the Kedushim of her father. Because she's called a Mashalcha Ve'ena Chizeres. If the father is no longer alive, let's say the father married her off, and the father is no longer alive. Because if the father's alive, we said before, there's a machlekes if she's able to receive her own get. So according to everybody, the father died. There's no one else who can receive her get for her. So a Ketana can receive her own get if she no longer is a father. When? Provided that she's of the mature age of putis, she's already a bit older. Higia lo'oinus the dorin comes to oinus which is a year before bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah. If they know to who they're making a net, before that, then dorin are to go into most. Yeah. In the Dreyen Neder, Hegdesh and Hegdish, that the Neder is a Neder, the Hegdish is the Hegdish, and Ukeneg done big tanan, this corresponds to a girl, Chayletzes, that if she reached puberty a year prior to us, reached puberty before then, we say to Shuma Balma, we just say, whatever, it's a growth. But if you reach puberty a year before Bas Mitzvah, a year before Bar Mitzvah, before a girl about Bas Mitzvah, and we say that one that in certain respects she's considered an adult, like you're an adorim and a geishma adult. That she can be chalitz. She's mature enough that she can actually give the chalitza. However, to sell property, Ajay and Essie should be 20 years old. You consider a cotton until 20, because that's when you reach full maturity. And where did we learn that from? Sorry?
Suddenly we're talking about Ketana, and all of a sudden, then Esrim. We changed the channel from
but here it makes no difference to boy or girl. So we say, here's a generic term. We learned this idea of 20 years old from because Adam Harishon everything was born in their full maturity. Adam, the Medrash was born, he was 20 years old. So 20 years old is considered the time, this is the peak. Is the peak of when you're a Bach in Yeshiva, that is the best time of your life. Full time. So that's when you reach full maturity, and that's why by Karka you have to be 20 years old. And we'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.